We had Rob Carnell from ING suggesting earlier that Angela Merkel should actually make this visit and make a play with some of that trade that may be lost if the US does actually impose tariffs. What's your view on this?
Well, obviously she's going there as a German Chancellor, but of course she's ultimately representing the EU as well. So it's a much bigger game at stake here. The concerns, though, are very similar. So the idea that I think it's a very bad idea to look at trade as a zero-sum game, that somehow the US is losing it and Germany is going to win. That's not the way you're going to solve the problems. Merkel's concerns are ultimately the very same concerns as the Americans. It's market access, it's fairness. You've seen lots of German companies complain about the environment in China. You've got
a lot of those complaints have some justification, do they not?
Absolutely, and they've basically kept quiet for many years. I think many German companies and European companies and American companies have been making money in China. They've realised it's a tough market and it's somewhat unfair against them. But in the good days, they were making money and they didn't push back. Now it's a lot tougher and they're pushing back.
So it's a little hypocritical, is what you're saying?
It's human nature. I never really think why people think hypocritical or hypocrisy is a vice. It's just a fact of life. I think, you know, the Chinese have got much more assertive. They've got much bolder in what they're doing. And largely, many companies are saying enough's enough. We don't like the Made in China 2025 policy. We dislike Chinese coming in and buying our high tech, and yet we can't do the same in China. And so it's fairness. They're saying China's now a lot richer, a much bigger economy, and when it was smaller, we were prepared to give, you know, people were prepared to give it more slack. Now the game has changed.
Fraser, it's Tom here in Beijing. I'm wondering, are you seeing any signs that China is prepared to change its strategy in light of what we're seeing, whether that's in Canada today, blocking a deal over security concerns that have been voiced in Germany, but also, of course, in the US, particularly, as you say, and you've reflected on this, on the technology moves here in China and the Made in China 2025 project. Are you seeing any change in strategy from China in light of the resistance that they're facing?
Not really, not yet. I haven't seen any substantial changes. You hear lots of nice words, of course, but also this security, you know, I think in the Canadian deal, I'm not an expert on it, but let's be honest, it's a construction company, is it not? And really, what's the security concern? You know, security is waved out there as a banner in the same way that compliance is used in financial markets to stop doing things that the regulators don't allow us. So it's a bit of a panacea to stop deals. I haven't seen any major change by the Chinese. I'd like to think it will force change. But remember, Xi Jinping has made it very clear he wants a very strong China. He wants a strong China run by the Communist Party. And so his authoritarian model does not lend itself to a more open and friendly China.
And how concerned do you expect Angela Merkel to be about the closer relationships and ties that China is developing with Eastern European countries?
Well, I think that's a bugbear of the EU, because when you're dealing with the EU or any European countries, it's ultimately China against the EU when it comes to trade deals. And China has a history of trying to split off different countries to try and get some leverage. So I'm sure she is very concerned. She's obviously going to remind the Chinese of that. But also much of the work needs to be done back at home as well, that many Eastern European countries feel they don't necessarily get a fair hearing within Europe. So often the problems are domestic or European focused rather than necessarily Chinese. China's going to basically play the cards to its advantage. It's for the Europeans to make sure their house is in order.